You have heard the stories. Hitler was a misunderstood artist who was rejected from art school. Hitler was a kind vegetarian who loved animals. Hitler was a brilliant genius who built the highways and fixed the economy. For decades, these little facts have been passed around as if they make the most evil man in history somehow more human, more relatable, almost likable. But here is the problem. Almost every single one of them is either a lie, a myth, or carefully crafted propaganda designed to fool you. So today, we are going to fact-check Hitler. And by the end, you will understand exactly how a monster was disguised as a saint. Let us begin. Fact number 1. Hitler was a talented artist who was rejected from art school. This is the most famous story of all. The tragic genius denied his dream, who turned to evil because the world rejected his art. It is a nice story. It is also mostly nonsense. Yes, Hitler applied to the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts. And yes, he was rejected. Twice. In 1907 and again in 1908. But here is what the myth leaves out. The Academy was not even that hard to get into. In 1907, they accepted 75% of all applicants. 3 out of every 4 people who applied got in. Hitler was so untalented that he failed to make the cut that almost everyone passed. And why was he rejected? The examiners looked at his work and wrote a brutal verdict. His drawings had, quote, too few heads. In other words, he could not draw people. He could copy buildings. He could trace postcards. But he had no soul, no imagination, no understanding of the human form. One critic later described his paintings as the work of an architect's assistant. Precise, lifeless, and empty. The tragic, misunderstood genius was, in reality, a mediocre copyist who could not even draw a face. Fact number 2. Hitler was a gentle vegetarian who loved animals. This one feels almost designed to make you uncomfortable. The idea that the man responsible for the deaths of millions would not even hurt a cow. It is repeated constantly. And it is one of the most successful pieces of propaganda ever created. Here is the truth. The image of Hitler, the kind vegetarian, was deliberately manufactured by Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi minister of propaganda. Goebbels wanted to present Hitler to the German people as a pure, selfless, almost holy figure. A man with no vices, who did not smoke, did not drink, and did not even eat meat. They wanted him to seem as gentle as Gandhi. But the historical record tells a different story. Multiple people who cooked for him and dined with him reported that he regularly ate sausages, liver, and game. A famous German chef even wrote about preparing meat dishes for him. The truth is, he only adopted a mostly meat-free diet very late in his life, and likely for a simple, unglamorous reason. He had terrible digestive problems and chronic stomach pain. There was no great moral awakening, no love for animals, just a sick man with a bad stomach, and a propaganda machine that turned it into a halo. Fact number 3. Hitler loved animals more than people. This is the natural follow-up to the vegetarian myth. And it usually comes with a detail about how the Nazis passed strong animal protection laws, which is technically true. They did pass laws about animal welfare. But think for 1 second about what that actually means. This was a regime that conducted the most horrific medical experiments in human history on living, conscious human beings. They starved people. They froze people. They worked people to death. A government that showed concern for the comfort of a laboratory rabbit while systematically murdering human beings by the millions does not reveal a love of animals. It reveals something far more disturbing. A mind that had completely inverted the value of life itself. The animal laws were not kindness. They were proof of how deeply the regime had decided which lives mattered and which did not. Fact number 4. Hitler fixed the German economy. You hear this one a lot. Say what you want, but he got people back to work. He built the Autobahn. He pulled Germany out of the Great Depression. It sounds impressive. It is also an illusion built on a time bomb. Here is what really happened. Hitler did reduce unemployment, but he did it by pouring almost all of the nation's money into one thing: building weapons for war. He borrowed money he had no intention of ever paying back, using secret financial schemes that any honest economist knew would eventually collapse the entire country. The only way to avoid total financial ruin was to start a war and steal the resources of other nations. In other words, the so-called economic miracle was not a recovery. It was a countdown. He did not fix the economy. He mortgaged the entire country to fund a war that would destroy it. Fact number 5. Hitler was named Time magazine's Man of the Year, so he must have been admired. People love to bring this one up as proof that the world once respected him, but this reveals a complete misunderstanding of what that title actually meant. Time's Man of the Year was never an award. It was never an honor. It was given to the person who had the greatest impact on world events, for better or for worse. Hitler received it in 1938, the same year he seized Austria and threatened to plunge Europe into war. The magazine cover did not celebrate him. The accompanying article was deeply critical and alarmed, warning the world about the danger he posed. Stalin received the same title. So did other figures responsible for immense suffering. It was a recognition of influence, not approval, and certainly not praise. Fact number 6, and this is the most important one of all. Hitler was a unique evil, a one-of-a-kind monster, so singular that nothing like him could ever happen again. This is the most comforting myth, and also the most dangerous, because the terrifying truth is that Hitler was not a supernatural force of evil who descended from nowhere. He was an ordinary, unremarkable, frankly pathetic man, a failed artist, a failed student, a man who lived in a homeless shelter. He did not invent hatred. The anti-Semitism that fueled his rise had existed in Europe for centuries before he was ever born. He did not create the conditions that brought him to power. A broken economy, a humiliated nation, and a frightened population did that. He simply stepped into the moment and amplified the worst instincts that were already there. And that is exactly why the myths are so dangerous. Every time we turn him into a misunderstood artist, a gentle animal lover, or a unique, unrepeatable monster, we make the same mistake. We tell ourselves that the people who followed him were somehow different from us, that we would have known better, that it could never happen here. But the people who cheered for him were not monsters. They were ordinary people, teachers, farmers, shopkeepers, parents, people who were told who to blame for their problems and chose to believe it. So the next time someone tells you a fun little fact about Hitler, the artist, the vegetarian, the animal lover, remember what those facts are really doing. They are not making history more interesting. They are quietly rewriting a monster into a man you might have liked. And the moment we forget what he truly was, is the moment we make it easier for the next one to rise. History does not repeat itself by accident. It repeats itself when people forget. So don't forget. If you made it this far, subscribe. Because next time, we are uncovering the propaganda tricks that turned an entire nation into followers, and how the exact same tricks are still being used on you today.